Hi everyone. The lesson for today for our Wordy Wisdom is the importance of punctuation. I'm going to take you through the slides and we'll discuss why punctuation is important, how it can impact the tone of our writing, and then at the end we will figure out what type of punctuation you are as sort of a personality test. So here we go. Here are the 10 most used punctuation marks. We have the period, ends a sentence, a question mark, ends a question, exclamation mark, ends a sentence with a strong feeling. Remember, we are trying to avoid overusing those in emails. We have a comma, which separates sentence items, semicolon, one of my absolute favorites, which separates two related sentences, a colon, lists or introduces items, the apostrophe shows ownership or omissions, and the quotation marks shows dialogues or indicates titles. Hyphens and dash, a hyphen joins compound words, a dash displays ranges, that's the longer one, and then ellipses, which signals omitted words. Ellipses are used a little bit different when you're texting. They can be those three bubbles that show up when you're waiting for someone to respond to you, or just you taking a breath in your text message. But ellipses in literature, or when you're writing, actually means you're omitting different words. So if you're quoting someone, maybe you only want the beginning and end of the quote. The middle bits that you chop out, you'd put in ellipses there. So they look a little bit different in our actual writing. So those are the 10 most used punctuation marks. So let's look at how punctuation impacts the message and tone of writing. So I'm going to have you guys just listen to this letter, and I'm going to read it based on the punctuation that is found. My dear Miranda, the dinner we shared the other night, it was absolutely lovely. Not in my wildest dreams could I ever imagine anyone as perfect as you are. Could you, if only for a moment, think of our being together forever? What a cruel joke to have you come into my life only to leave again. It would be heaven denied. The possibility of seeing you again makes me giddy with joy. I face the time we are apart with great sadness. Luke. P.S. I would like to tell you that I love you. I can't stop thinking that you are one of the prettiest women on earth. Wow, look at the punctuation in that letter by Luke. So let's break it down. What is Luke's message to Miranda? You might have said things like, the message is a love letter, Luke wants to tell Miranda how much he loves her, how much he's into her, that type of thing. Now, what is the tone? Now, remember that tone is the writer's attitude toward the subject being discussed. Similar to the words that we used in our Flipgrid video. The tone might be aggressive or ominous, calm, comical. So what do you think the tone is here for Luke's letter? You might have said things like, it is romantic, hopeful, optimistic, very positive tones for this letter. This letter is one that, Luke wants to get to Miranda immediately and tell her how much he's into her, right? Let's look at this letter with a different set of punctuation. Now, a few words are moved around, but for the most part, everything's the same, just the punctuation is different. So check this out. My dear, Miranda, the dinner we shared the other night, it was absolutely lovely. Not in my wildest dreams could I ever imagine anyone as perfect as you are. Could you, if only for a moment, think of our being together forever? What a cruel joke. To have you come into my life only to leave again, it would be heaven. Denied the possibility of seeing you again makes me giddy. With joy I face the time we are apart. With great sadness, Luke. P.S. I would like to tell you that I love you. I can't stop thinking that you are one of the prettiest women on earth. Okay, so Luke's tone here and message has definitely shifted. So let's break it down. What is the message of this letter to Miranda? You might have said things like it is a breakup letter or a letter telling her how much he hates to be around her. It's very, very aggressive. So let's talk about the tone. What is the tone? You might have said things like it's rude, it's really harsh, aggressive even would be a good way to describe this. All very negative tones. Now remember, most of the words are in the exact same spot, but really the punctuation is the only thing that has changed. All the words are in that letter, but the punctuation is very different. So that's why punctuation is so incredibly important, because it impacts the message and tone of your writing. This is why I harp on it a lot during the year, because it is that important. It can turn a romantic love letter into a hate letter almost. Look at the difference between these two. All the words are found within each one, romantic Luke versus vicious Luke, but again, it's just that punctuation that is different. That is all that was needed to change the whole entire message and tone of both letters. We're now going to move into figuring out which type of punctuation mark you are. Now that you've discovered the impact of it, let's figure out which one you are. It's kind of a personality test. So you're going to think of the responses to the following questions. I want to make sure we understand what they're asking first, and then you'll actually take the quiz. So the first question that you are going to be introduced to is, you've just come into a ton of money. What's your initial reaction? So how do you respond first? You jump up and down, screaming your head off. You ask if there's a catch. You start dreaming up all the things you will do with it. You start spending it randomly on amazing things. You figure out how much you want to spend and how much you want to save. Or you plot a fabulous way to spend it on something big. So when you come into a ton of money, how do you respond? The second question you're going to be answering is, you're arguing with some friends over an issue you care deeply about. How do you drive your point home? Meaning, how do you really land your article? Do you get very animated and hyper explaining it to them? Do you try to figure out where they're coming from? You keep telling them the different reasons for feeling the way that you do. You try to emphasize the points on which you all agree. You try to give them as many facts as possible so that they are better informed. Or maybe you present them with a simple, elegant argument. So how do you make sure that your friend understands your side of an opinion? The third question you're going to answer is, when you're spending an evening alone watching a movie, what kind of movie do you pick? Action, suspense, a hybrid like a dramedy where you're mixing genres, comedy, a documentary that's a story about real events, or a drama? The fourth question you're going to answer is, you can't stand it when people are calm during exciting times, unwilling to reflect on things, closed-minded, slow, eager to ignore the truth, sloppy. What makes you irritated when other people do those things? Which one? And lastly, you'll be answering, you've got your own faults, but some of your good qualities might include your enthusiasm and energy, maybe your flexibility and eagerness to learn, your optimism and liberal attitude, not so much liberal as in political, but more open-mindedness, your eye for detail and deep knowledge of the world, your ability to be fair and impartial, or your style and grace. What are your good qualities? I'm going to drop this link in the chat, and on here, if you're watching this later, you can click on that, and it'll take you to the quiz. At the end of it, you will get a screenshot, or I should say you'll get a image that'll say which punctuation you are. What I'd like you to do is screenshot that for me and submit it on Canvas. Then I can compile maybe the most punctuations in our class, or something like that. So that way we can all see, which type of punctuation we are. So I'm going to let you guys work. Once you're finished answering those 5 questions, screenshot your results and submit them on Canvas. I'm excited to see what you guys are.